Imagine a kingdom lost in the mists of time, and the sinister plot to keep it that way. Our Father in heaven, sitting in his timeless abode, created the past and the future for those of us who live on the earth. He made the framework and the order. The future is kept hidden, but to a special few. What kind of evil interferes with that order and hides the past as well? This story is our family's inheritance that we now wish to share with as many as possible. We are acutely aware that there is a worldwide deception underway, which desperately needs a counter. Remember, this is the time of the little season. It is the short time allowed to be governed by the father of lies.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unexpected Cosmology. My name is Noel Joshua Hadley, and I am here joined by Steve Arnold, also known to many of us as Rockman. He is the Rockman. He is a community member here at Talk. In fact, did we meet before the retreat at any other conference or anything like that? At Zen's conference, I believe it was. But Rockman here, Steve, he came out to the Tuck retreat this last year, our Passover retreat in Arkansas. I always want to call it Southern Missouri, but people in Arkansas do not appreciate it being called Southern Missouri. And just this last week, I had the pleasure of having Steve come by my house and show a personal show and tell of his rock collection, which is we're going to be covering tonight. Steve, your really, I don't know if you call it lifelong, but for many years now, your in-depth field research, and I'm sure you'll have plenty to say about it. So welcome. Thank you for coming on. And it feels like it's been a long time coming. Like I should have brought you on a long time ago. So yeah, everybody get ready for the School of Rock tonight. And it's going to rock and maybe even roll. The writing will be on the wall. So Steve, tell us about yourself and what we're looking at tonight. I could explain it, but I would rather have you tell our audience what we can expect tonight.
Well, what I do is, I'm an outdoor person, and I spend by far most of a day outside if it's possible. And I've always been a woods person, out in the woods, even since a little kid. And so, you have to be out there to experience these things. And I got into, I found things when I was a kid, but I didn't know what they were. And I'm not talking about it's kind of funny because I would go hunting arrowheads with some friends of mine. A good friend of mine, he was actually a member of the Catawba tribe in upstate South Carolina, and we would go arrowhead hunting and pottery and stuff like that. I never found anything. I mean, I found stuff, but my buddy would come back with, by then I was probably, I was 20 years old, and the last time we went, and he's coming back with these beautiful arrowheads, and and he goes, "What do you got?" And I go, "Well, I got some cool looking rocks." and actually one time, he said, "You didn't find the arrowheads?" I said, "I didn't find it." And he said, "Well, don't take a step because you're going to break a nice one." And he just picked one up basically right between my feet. So, mine's more of a spiritual quest, is what it's been, because the very first thing that I found, rock I found that I wanted to know what it was, it turned into a spiritual thing. So I can get to that, but
that reminded me of, not to cut you off, reminded me of, not that we celebrate Halloween here, but it reminded me of the Charlie Brown Halloween episode where they were going around, opening up their bags and everybody got candy, and Charlie Brown would be like, "I got rocks." Have you found arrowheads since that time, or still no luck on that?
I have not. I don't look for them though. I could go out and find some, but I don't look for them. It's just, and I really don't go to the places exactly. You you can find things like that in fields, flat fields where they drain off into places after someone's plowed a field up. But I'm more of like these places that nobody goes. I was telling you that, we'll go out and I'm like, well, I'm going over there. Why? Because it looks like nobody's ever goes over there. But I learned some things. Gosh, it's been from the very first one. That would have been that'd have been in the 90s, I guess, when I found this one. I don't have the date somewhere, but I found and I'll just go ahead and tell you that. And I know I've already mentioned to you, but I found a rock. I picked it up. I was just cutting grass, and I found this rock, and I picked it up to throw it away, and it almost cut my hand. I'm like, wow, that's something, and I started looking at it, and I'm putting this on. This is a tool, and I'm putting it in my hand, and it didn't fit anyway. It just wouldn't go, and so I ended up taking it to a local guy that was a historian, Cherokee historian. And he said, well, that is a hide scraper. And if you don't know what a hide scraper is, that's just where, you'd hang up a pelt or something in the inside, they would use the hide scraper to scrape the meat off to dry it out. And he looked at it, he says, not only is that a hide scraper, that is a beautiful one. He goes, this is one of the nicest ones I've ever seen, if not. And he wanted it, but I wasn't going to give it to him. And I'm like, well, how do you work it? And I'm saying, I couldn't get it to work. And he says, well, you got to put it in your other hand because I'm left-handed. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. And I put that thing in my hand and every finger fit in place. And I ended up giving it to a friend of mine who was full Cherokee. And I thought he would really appreciate it. He did. He put it in a little case in his office. And his secretary, just a regular old white shirts lady, I saw this guy. We didn't live in the same town, but I saw him a good bit. And the next time I saw him a few months later, he says, you've got to talk to Ann. And that's, his secretary. I go, why? He goes, she's got something to tell you. And so when I talked to her, she says, I don't know what. She says, but that rock you gave him, she says, nothing like this ever happened. But I was in there and I could sense there was a woman in there, a woman's spirit. And she said, I knew exactly where she was. And I knew that she was associated with that rock that you gave Marcus. And so, just leave it at that. But I'm like, well, this lady's
how far away was the rock from where you retrieved it in his office?
Oh, that actually was in Missouri, and he ended up it ended up in Oklahoma. So I felt good about that because I know it was a Cherokee and that's where they got going. But I thought maybe I had done something wrong really when, like what was, did I, it was from Roswell, 1, 2, 3, Georgia, but from Roswell, Georgia to no, actually that was Kansas City. That was in Kansas, but just over the border there. But it ended up going, from there to there. So, but I gave
that spirit traveled a long ways to get to that rock.
No, well, yeah, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that it was already in there. Or I don't know about in there, but it was associated with it somehow. But I don't know that really. It could be exactly what you're saying and everything. But that just kind of started a journey. And I told a lady, I worked for the historical district doing taking care, maintenance on historical homes in Roswell, Georgia there. And there was a girl that worked there. And I mentioned, she did some cleaning there. And I mentioned it to her. I said, that was the strangest thing. And she said, you need to go talk to, and she gave me this guy's name. And he had a little museum. And let me turn this off. But he had a little museum there. And he was into stuff like that. And of course, that's kind of a different, that was, I mentioned that. Yeah, I wasn't going to get into that. But by the time I went to see him, I missed him by a week. He had passed away. And his wife was out there, and I just started talking to her. And she just started crying. It was just something, and gave me the whole story about him passing away. First time I'd ever heard, she said he was there. She says, and I went in there. He wasn't that old. He was maybe just still in his 50s. He had a heart attack. He had heart trouble in his family. and she said the heavens, she says, when I went there, she says, I looked, she said, I swear the heavens opened up above. I'm like, well, that's interesting, that's but I've read that in scripture before, so I can't say it wasn't possible. But things like that, everything had a little something to it. And even the next time I went to he had a museum, and some guys kept his museum open for about a month, and I went there as much as I could looking at this stuff, and then it closed down. But I met some interesting guys there. They really weren't into it. They were more on they were all into the Cherokee, but they were more on the physical history and all that. But he was into the spiritual side. But I learned a lot from that. I started learning little things. I had a book this guy had written. He didn't even read or write, but he had tape recorded a book walking out in the woods, and a lady had typed it up for him, and he'd printed this book. And, you could tell by the language he wasn't, I think he got through maybe 5th grade, he said, or something like that. But anyway, that was from that book, and from looking at things there was a lot of, a few people that I got a good start on it, on, just learning on some of the language, because it's like learning a language. It really is. And I guess the biggest question I get when I say something, like I'll hold up, I was looking to see something I could put up there, but, I'll just, I'll hold up here. I'll just say, you hold up something like that, and I'll say, well, that's an eagle, and it's got a lot of signs on it, and they'll say, well, how do you know that? And I guess it's like when someone asks you, can you prove, there's a supreme being? And I can't, I tell them, no, I can. I can tell you about him a little bit, but you just do what I did. I just asked him. I really did. And in my own way. And that was when I was 6 years old. And that's the truth. I went to a Baptist church, and we had the lesson, had to have the little prepared lessons on how to pray and everything. And so that Sunday, I guess it was on prayer. And I remember the lady saying, well, it's the first time I'd really heard anybody tell me how to pray. So you get on your knees, and whatever you ask God for, he'll give it to you. And I'm like, well, if you just ask in Jesus' name. That was the exact thing she said. And I said, and I thought about that. And that night I went in there, and I got down, when nobody was around. And she even told us, you can say it out loud, or you can, you can just say it to yourself. It doesn't really matter. Well, like I said, that night I did get on my knees, and by all my memory, I may have whispered it, but I said it quiet, and I prayed, and I asked the Father in Jesus' name for $1. And I mean, I guess at the time that was all. I didn't need anything else really, and I sure didn't have any dollars. So that age. And that, I mean, that was a long time ago. But the very next day I was outside playing, and I just decided, everything was woods there then. I grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And believe it or not, 4 blocks from the ocean, that'd have been 1965, I guess, 1964. It was woods all around us then. And we were right in the, in a good part of the town there. But I went across a little path. As soon as I got out in the woods, I looked down, and I found $1. And so I kind of knew, at that point in time that, that there was somebody that could hear my thoughts, and he had dollars, So I thought that was interesting. And
you had mentioned you're building a case here for the spirituality of everything. You had mentioned you're from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and what was amazing was when you came over to my house and you said that, and I'm thinking, because of course I live just outside of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm like, wow, we're from the same state at some point. But your wife was like, well, I was raised just down the street. I'm like, what? And I knew like right where it was, where just like literally like I'm like what, a mile from here or less, like probably as a bird flies like a third of a mile. And not only that, you guys had just come from hopefully you don't mind me saying, you had just come from a service from a church that was her relatives were there, was the like one of the last churches that we went to. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, like we were going to the same church as her, relations. Like, this is how small this world is, how interconnected everybody is. But so, and I just want to say to everyone out there, if you're kind of wondering where this is going, Steve, you had started out talking about the arrowheads. You never found arrowheads. Nevertheless, there is something about the arrowheads, is that what is an arrowhead? It's carved, right? It was made by men, presumably by men. We assume by men. There's no reason to think they weren't. And they're not natural rock formations. You have never found arrowheads, but you had just held up the eagle. Now, when you were at my house, you brought several rocks in your collection, which I was afraid to touch. I'm like, I'm not touching those things, just not because I'm afraid of the spiritual. I was afraid to drop it and break your rocks. I'm like, I don't want to be liable for dropping these things. The first one you held up, I might have been that eagle. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, Steve. I mean, yeah, it looks like an eagle, but it could just be a natural rock. I'm thinking this, right? The skeptic in me. And then you held up another and another and another. And the more you held up, I'm like, okay, you're building a case here. So anyways, that these were made by men for a specific purpose. I know you're going to cover this tonight, but just want to throw that out there for the audience, for those listening and going like, where what are we talking about here? Yeah. So anyways, you found the dollar in the woods, and I'm sorry to cut you off there, but let's get back into that.
Yeah. Well, I just said that to let you know how, that I believed a long time ago. And actually, a long time ago, I did more than believe. I don't remember exactly when, but when people ask me, do you believe? And I go, well, I know. I mean, do you believe that, the lamb died on the cross? Well, I know it. And I do. And I'm sure most of the people watching this, I just know there's no doubt in my mind about it. I would never turn from that. There's just no way. But, I did tell that story to some people later, and it was, you never can. It's always the skeptic. Believe me, I've heard it all. But people would, when I tell that story about the dollar, I say, it's the first time I ever prayed and I got $1. Well, your parents probably heard you say that. And even if they did, there was, my dad worked just a regular job. There were 5 kids in my family. There was no way my parents were going to give me $1. That just was out of the question. I couldn't even get a nickel. I remember asking my mom, because there was a convenience store, and I'm 6, 7 years old. We could walk to about 1.5 miles away. Can I get a nickel? No, I don't have it. I don't have it. Well, that's not true. Sometimes she would give me a nickel if I would bring her back a pack of cigarettes, which it's true. Back then, a 6-year-old could go in a convenience store and slap the money on the counter and go, "Give me a pack of Marlboro Lights. It's for my mama," and and they would do it. But
then you reach right, you get the chocolate cigarettes and be like, that one's for me.
I buy 5 pieces of bubble gum. But I never did ask again, which is kind of odd when I thought about it. I never prayed and asked for money again. And I thought, well, wow, that's kind of odd, for a kid, for that to happen and never go back to that well. But I'll say that just to try to tell you this journey I'm on. Probably like, a lot of people out there doing the same thing. But I can say that it is what I do is it is from above. And that's really what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not just finding stuff. I'm finding things that were meant for, the Father's people, that were meant for someone to find, to tell a story. I mean, I think I mentioned this. I don't see some of it, I just call it scripture. It really is. A lot of it is just, it's scripture. And a lot, and it's the same as scripture. I don't know what that means. Well, some of this, I have no idea what it means, but I know it's something. but I do know, a little bit of it.
And you've never had an experience. You mentioned the apparition or the spirit that appeared in the man's office. You never had an experience like that, correct?
I have, actually.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I've had several of them, but never seen anybody. I mean, it really didn't have anything to do with that, but I had someone who I had never met that had passed away. No way that I plan to get into this, but I was just right. I was involved in this stuff, and it was, it was really, it was just at a good point with my everything, and trying to, do things and whatever to help some people out. And this guy who all I'd ever heard about was good things. I'm driving down the road in my truck. I'm actually helping somebody move. And all of a sudden there's somebody over there. I looked, I couldn't see him, but I knew what they were saying. And it was a guy that I'd never met that wanted me to tell his wife that everything was okay. And, and don't worry about it. And he had passed away a while. I think it had probably been by this time 6 or 7 years. I didn't know him, but, and so I went back and I told a friend of mine that who was, knew the stuff that we talked about the same things. He was a very spiritual guy. He really was. And he says, you need to go. I'm not going to go tell his wife that. She'll think I'm crazy. I go, but in that, when it was happening there, when I knew what it went on, I'm like, Lord, this couldn't have just happened. I can't believe that. And I said, well, if it did, will you let it happen again? And and it did, and he came back on, okay. So I knew I had to, but this guy convinced me to do it. And I just called the lady, and I told her about the story. She lived a good ways away on the other side of Atlanta. And I called her, and because I used to see her at church, and I knew her well. She was older, and she just started crying, and she goes, "You're not going to believe this, but yesterday was our anniversary, and I have been thinking about how much he did for people and for the Lord, and I just feel like I don't do anything." And so and she believed every word of it. So that ended that, but I don't know how we got off on that, but. So I do believe in those things. I definitely, it's kind of like when Sean Walking Bear on his show, I wanted to hear him say so much more. I'm like, you tell him, brother, you tell him, but let's see, but several things did happen to me, I guess, too. Before I even reached age 13, I had some reoccurring dreams that were just, one that was very applicable about, being on that path, but I had, I was in the woods one time. I was probably about 12, and I wasn't very far. I was just right there, and I saw something, and it wasn't anything spectacular. It doesn't matter, but I saw it, and something in my mind said, never forget that. And so as I walked off, I'm like, well, I saw this, and I'm never going to forget it. And I never did. And probably, 30 plus years later, I realized it was about Native Americans, and I realized I'm like, wow, that is something. And so I've had those things happen. Let's see. But I guess as I started on that journey, I told you, about the thing with the lady. That was really the start of this rock journey as an adult, with the hide scraper, and it was really amazing to me. And that was in the mid '90s. That's when that was. But how everything just started to overlap and just tie in the things I had learned and the things I read, in Scripture and all that. Just started to just, really. I mean, it's still so much to know, but I knew that, this journey that I was on was totally spirit led by I don't know, rock. What do you say? Rock.
The Ruach HaKodesh.
I'm learning big words, but the Cherokee word, which I mean word, but it translates to the spirit of unity, and that is such a to me. I'm like, yeah, that's a good one there. A good trend, the spirit of unity, but but it really was, verifying everything to me. And I've never had a problem in praying and asking about verification either. Asking for a sign when I've like done all I could do, and when I'm just like, I can't do anymore, and not about some little nothing question, but something I've been working on and for years and years, when I really want to know something. And, and I've even got very specific, and it is very, maybe one day I'll tell you about some of that, just very specific to the fact that I'm like, amazing kind of things happen, that what I had dreamed about, and then what would happen the next day. That was really just, well, twice, but really just one time. That was the word I'd asked for. I said, if this is true, Lord, could something amazing happen that I'll know? And when something happened, and totally by accident, the first words came out of my mouth was, "That was amazing." I'm like, oh my gosh. So and it was a pretty good story too, but I always recommend to others to do that. Ask for a sign. And of course you can't say that to a lot of people. You don't ask for a sign, and they like to quote that verse,
testing the Lord are you testing the Lord your God?
Yeah. Oh, an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. I'm like, well, I'm not asking, for a Messiah to come off the cross, or, prove to me you're no fool, walk across my swimming pool. Prove to me you're divine, change my water into wine. You probably know where that comes from. But
I've asked, I've asked for signs too, and Jan knows I love animals, and I've given the story before. I'm not going to go into it because I want to talk about your rocks, but I've talked about how, like, I was like, I go out there to the oak tree behind my house, and I was like, okay, if this is true, put an owl right there. I want to see an owl right there on that branch. And lo and behold, within like hours, there's an owl taking a nap on the branch, and then I'd be like, okay, that's great and all, but I want to see like a turtle over here, and then like lo and behold, there's the biggest turtle I've ever seen just like walking across our dock. So yeah, I mean, it's totally I don't ask for signs very often, but he's definitely giving them for clarification.
Yeah, it's been a while, and like I'll just mention this. I had said this one day. I think it was to Mel saying something. I said, my problem was I asked the wrong. I wasn't getting questions answered, but I was asking the wrong question, and that's because I was trying to ask things that were looking at it from a futuristic revelation view, that kind of stuff, and it wasn't applicable, so but I guess most of the stuff I got, it came to me a lot word of mouth, books, a lot of stuff is on trees. It's not much there anymore. The trees, about all disappeared.
Sure.
I told you about that. I was doing a video for Heidi and her girls there, a little on Beech Tree. And there was this beech tree I'd been to a handful of times, and I'd never, it was a beautiful tree. That's why I went to it. And it was a little hike. But when as I was doing the tree, I walked around to the other side. I always approached it from the creek side. I don't guess I ever went up on the hillside because it was on a slope. And when I went up there, I saw, and this was just, weeks ago, whatever, I saw all this writing on there. And I mean, and when I realized what some of it was, I was like, I really only knew there was a bunch of signs on it. I only really knew what one was.
Is this a picture you gave me?
Yeah, that stick man.
Do you want me to pull it up?
You can, yeah. It'll be fine.
All right. Going through your slides here, what I put up. I think it was this right here, right? Was it this one? No, it was this one.
I'm on a little. I got it on my phone. I don't see you good. Gosh. There's a little. It says stick man on the file if you can see it, but you can. It's just kind of some lines coming down. Is what it is. But when I saw that, I mean, I was actually filming when I saw it. One of them's got something on the side, looks like a sideways circle. I don't want that one, but the other one. I think that's it.
This is it. Yeah.
But I was actually, filming this tree when I saw that, and I saw that sign, and I've never found one. I've seen one before, and that was 25 years ago. Somebody showed it to me. But what that is, and it kind of ties into what you were talking about. I'd say like on the cathedrals, the gargoyles, because what that represents is well, the white people called it a demon, because that's the translation. But what it is, believe it or not, is a Bigfoot. So I don't know if I had told you that, but that
I know you had mentioned that you've seen markings, on the tree. I remember you told me the story of the tree that you believe was a marking for the Bigfoot. So specifically, because this is good, to start getting into this. So now theoretically, actually not theoretically, we know that most of the trees were cut down. There's very few old forests left. There's some like in North Dakota, North Carolina, a few places, but so very few of the trees survive. So whatever would have had markings on it was cut down, built and turned into houses, stuff like that. But what is it specifically about this Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Like, why would they put that there? In your assessment?
This place is a sacred place. I'll just say that. The first time I wasn't going to get into this, but the first time I went there, I was with a friend, and I was helping him mark off. We were just following a line for somebody. They wanted to get to an end of a property on, that went just, dozens of acres, and we're just going through there using a compass. I think I said that, but we're going through there, and I came upon it, that area. It wasn't exactly that, but we came down. It was right there, but it wasn't, right at that tree per se. But we came down there, and I was with my friend, and he's half Cherokee actually, but he's and I've known him a long time, and he's started getting into this stuff a little bit. He really does. But when I went down there, I realized what had happened there, and that's that that Messiah had been there, and right, Steve. But I did. It was just one of those instant things. I'm like, wow. He was there, and how do you know that? I don't know, but I did know it. Maybe because he's approached me before. But
how long ago was this?
Huh?
How long ago was this that you had this revelation?
That was just that was probably it was less than 15 years ago.
Okay, so because I know that a lot of people have mentioned to me, one of the things that really clicked the material that we went through here at the Unexpected Cosmology was He Walked the Americas. And I know that was a profound influence on many people's lives, where they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. The white prophet or whatever he was called, he was given many different names. So okay, so this is the site that you're saying the Sasquatch, this is the site that you're saying that Messiah was there.
That's right. And but I didn't know that till a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, that the Sasquatch thing was there. But I knew he'd been there, and I got when we left, like a few days later, I was talking to my buddy. We were just talking about, because it was quite a journey we went through. We went up some hills there. It actually put me out of commission for about 6 months, because I stretched a Achilles tendon there on my one of my feet, back on that there. So, but he said, we were talking about, he goes, when we went down in that place, and I said, yeah. He said, that was a special place. And I'm like, oh yeah, it was. And I didn't tell him, what I knew, because he would have just, right, especially then. But it's that sense, and I, when something's, if you spend that much time outside and you're not, all into, I don't hunt or anything. I'm not saying I wouldn't, if I was hungry, but I just go out there and do stuff. And I have such appreciation now for the outdoors, the trees and everything, that they are alive. They even have feelings, some of them, which is silly, but that's the way I feel about it. But
Now, I've been to, you can clearly see on this that this is an old carving. I mean, no doubt about that in my mind. And that a lot of the, if we want to call them the ancients, old world residents drew stick figures. In fact, I got to go to, was it, how do you pronounce that? A Lasso Cave in France. And I got to see what many people believe is a watcher, the stick figure of the Birdman there. But like, what is it in your, you've been doing this for so long, you've seen so many of these. What is it specifically that has you go, okay, that is a Sasquatch? I mean, because if I were to go look at that, I go, okay, it's a stick figure. Yeah. It's like they were maybe playing hangman or something and somebody lost. But what is it that makes you go, okay, that's a Sasquatch?
Because well, really, they called it a demon, but because of all the ape type rocks I found in the area. And I mean, I didn't, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but because they were called in some tribes, the Sasquatch was called the stick man.
Okay.
And so that really kind of, on the same thing, if you look at that other marking that was on that tree, I didn't know what that was. I had seen it somewhere. It's the,
you want me to turn to, do you want me to turn to it?
Yeah, that one with it looks like a if you see there to the left there, I'm a long ways from the camera, but the circle with the lines coming out, you can see that, right?
Yeah, right here, yeah.
It kind of looks like a, which is funny. So when I realized that was a Sasquatch, I started watching some more, I've seen videos and stuff. I haven't seen one, but I don't disbelieve it. Now I'm actually a full believer in it, to be honest with you. But when I saw that, I was trying to figure out what that mark was, and I was watching a Bigfoot video of a guy just was giving his account, and he was associating them with lights. Like they would move, turn into some type of light and move. And I've heard if you
like orbs, like orbs.
Exactly. That's what he said, like an orb. He said, but when it left, he said the best way he could describe it was when it went, it looked like a sideways jellyfish. And I'm like, wow, that looks kind of a sideways jellyfish. And I've seen a lot of jellyfishes growing up in Myrtle Beach there. So that does look a little like a sideways jellyfish. So that made it pretty interesting to me. So, that's just speculation, but I feel pretty strongly about, I don't know about the orb thing. I really don't, because sometimes I think that these things might be some type of portal or something, I don't know the markings and everything, but in looking at all this, I've definitely found this correlation between, without a doubt, Native Americans, the Bigfoot, and this large being with kind of a big head that flew in crafts, and that's why that flew in a ship, and different ones, and different I guess different kind of ships. I want to say that, not one particular thing, but I would imagine that because there's stories about a lot of them, different ones coming in different areas in these. And I always thought when I would look at some of these, I'll go ahead and show you a little bit here, some which hopefully you can see it. So,
and as he's pulling these up, I want to say one of the things we were when I was asking you questions at my house, and I asked you about, like, because I kept asking you, like, how do you know? Because these shapes are really fascinating, and like, how do you know it means such and such? And you had expressed to me that there are other people as well that have that research this and have kind of, there's a community of rock experts out there that have passed on through the years what these things mean.
Right. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure there's somebody out there. I would love to get with them, but I'm the only one I know now. But there were, when I was getting into it, there were several guys. That one of the interesting stories. One of the guys, he wrote a lot of history on Cherokee. He just wrote about everything. He went and traveled to all the mounds across the countries. He went to other countries, and he's got a good book here I'd read. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. His name was Eugene Croy. He passed away a while back too. He wrote this book. It was called Silent Wings. But, you know, he was more like the historian. But by the time he wrote his next book, he's like, he kind of started out like, well, I know a lot of people I'm going to lose a lot of people that follow me, you know, but I have definitely associated. He said, you know, I'm the first one of these guys, believe it or not, that said Bigfoot. They said 8 men. And they thought they were looking at history, which is what I thought, you know. I thought I was looking at, and I'll tell you that. Let me show you there. So if we can get something going here, I don't know how it's going to come, but so here's like and it's got a lot of profiles on it, but like here's one, and I don't know how it's going to come out on there, but how's the lighting here? Do I need more light?
It looks, I can see it really well. It looks good.
Okay. There's like an 8 face going that way, right? Can you see it?
I can see it.
And
the nose is like, hold it up. So the nose, you can hear me, right? The nose is kind of right here. There's the brow. There's the chin.
And I should say these are profiles, you know, sideways looks. Nothing, although there are some looking head on, but about everything is a profile. So let me turn another light on here. Excuse me there, brother. Oh. I didn't have any more lights to turn on. But I'll go ahead and show you this. So that is, and you can see it on the other side too. And so, you know, they call these 8 men, and this is one I found. And then if you look at it this way, this is a Native American. He's looking that way. There's his little nose, the feather sticking up, you know.
That one is you're doing it in person. That one does. Everyone has taken my word on it. In person, I saw that one. It looks much more. The ape was very clear on camera. That one's a little bit harder on camera, but I can still see it.
I'm not getting good light in here. I should have set up a light, but and then on the other side is this big guy I talked about. You know, that came in the ship, and sometimes they wear helmets. But this one's kind of got a cloak on him, you know. Yeah.
Take us through it. Show it.
So, well, you know, his head goes up there. That's his nose, and he's got this kind of cloak thing on it, where a lot of times they have a helmet. Gosh, I wish I had more light in here.
That's okay. We'll work with what we have. And this is what I found really incredible as you started showing these, is how on some, this is why I didn't want to handle the rocks. I'm like, man, I don't want to be liable to drop these things. These very old, you know, these old maps.
Yeah.
Is that on one rock?
It's a map.
On one rock, yeah, and I want to talk about that tonight. And on one rock, you have like 3 or 4 different pictures. You just keep turning it over and back and forth. And
yeah, here's a different rock that's got the same stuff on it. Gosh, I always have to find them too. Okay, though, this guy's looking that way, right? I don't know if you can see that.
I can see it.
And I know you probably won't be able to see this, but on the inside of it, there is the Native American. I broke part of him. So, gosh, yeah. And then the flying guy, he is, let's see, here he is. He's got a helmet on, but his nose is sticking out there. Can you see that? Am I got it at a good angle?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So, and it's also makes the shape of an eagle, or it's got this triangle. And I'll throw this out there real quick. This is nothing you'll know, but these little triangle rocks, you'll find them in some places. That's the universal sign for a flying craft, you know. So,
okay, now quickly, in your estimation, looking at these rocks, you're walking around, and I almost wish your wife was here for this interview too, because she was like adding, a wife's commentary, which was pretty funny. How she would like go drop you off in these places, and she's waiting in the car, and you're off walking around, in these remote areas. But you're seeing all these rocks, and one of these catches your fancy, and you pick it up. And one of the things I've been asking you is like, are these carved rocks? Or are they natural rocks? How can you tell if they're carved?
Well,
I mean, the for certain the triangle there looks carved. I mean, some of them are like unquestionably carved.
Let me move. There's something blocking this slide. I'm just going to set it down. I might be able to see better, but it's like a good way to explain it, I guess, is that. When they had the Cherokee removal, there was a big thing about the Cherokee here hiding all their golds. There's some tunnels in some places. I've never been out looking for them. I have a little information on the areas they were in, but they couldn't take it with them. So they put all their treasures, artifacts, not everything, but they would put a bunch of tribes got together, and there were thousands of people working on trees, leaving signs so that they could come back years later or whatever, they could get it. And it's a pretty popular story. But it's kind of like if you asked 100 artists, you go, well, paint a picture of, I want you all to paint a picture of, say, some of the ladies out there, Rebecca and Pamela and Sarah. You put maybe 5 or 6 ladies out there. Kristen, I don't want to leave anyone. Who are some other? You put all these lovely ladies
in the room, yeah.
And you ask them to 100 people to paint a picture of them, and every picture is going to be different, right?
Absolutely.
Different shapes, different different colors. Just everything's going to be different, down to the rock they use, the canvas texture, I guess. I'm not an artist.
Even Sasquatches look as varied and different as people do too. And I would imagine these watchers that come down, whether you want to call them aliens or whatever, I'm sure they all look, they probably even look more different than, some of the others. So yeah, I would imagine they all look very, very varied.
Yeah. But funny thing, the guy that, this guy that kind of gave him that name, these 8-man rocks, and here's another way I know it's there, because I just heard about these things and then I found them, so I'm like, well, so there you go. But this guy that just called these an 8-man, and he would call I've got as a matter of fact, out there outside, it's a bigger one, but it's a headstone. So these Sasquatch, they do die. So some other people think they live forever. They do, because there's some.
You have a headstone that you believe was for a Sasquatch?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a lot of headstones out there, and I got the Sasquatch by accident. But the first headstone I got, I would probably not mess with them, but they were doing a subdivision, and they were bulldozing. I'm like, I got to get this out of here, So, but the first guy that was given these things that name, the 8-men. It's funny because he kind of, and I thought the same way. I'm like, look at that. We've got like 3 different civilizations, when I bit on these rocks. That's really cool. And then I realized that no, they all lived together. They were together. These, the Native Americans, the Sasquatch, and these. I don't know who those people are. That is my thing. I've been, kind of working on trying to figure out who are these people. And some of these people did some, divining, witching. I told you about that. And there's some of them, and I know it was real. One of the guys, but they could only basically ask yes or no questions and stuff, and go to play. And divining was big on finding Native American artifacts. And I know of dozens of stories where people went out there doing stuff like that, and things happened to them. And it was kind of like, finding a big, they never said that. It was like, I am never doing that again, because things happened to them. But this guy, this has probably been about the 70s. He took a picture. He was out there in the woods. He carried a Polaroid camera with him. He took a picture of what he said. It's a Sasquatch foot. It was a big. I've got a black and white of it. It was just, it only had 4 toes, so I don't really know. I'm not an expert on that, but it was pretty big. It was under 20 inches. It's probably 16, 17. It was pretty big. He just said, "Oh yeah, ape man, it's a Sasquatch." But he was doing all this ape man stuff, but he didn't put it together like, wow, it's the same thing, And but he was like just a Protestant church person, and I guess his big question was, well, I can't. He was dealing with it. He really was like, okay, I know this is real, this ape man, but what are they saying, that we evolved from apes? That he was looking at it from that way. He couldn't see that we were separate entities on what he was doing. But
somebody just asked a question, and I was going to ask the same question, and they said, I'll put this back up on the screen. So are the rocks left to let you know? Now we're talking specifically about the Sasquatch here, because we're going to talk about the eagles and what they represent and all that kind of stuff, but specifically with the ape skulls or heads you're finding. So are the rocks left to let you know the Sasquatch are in the area or to beware?
No.
What is your understanding?
Rocks are not for regular people. Regular people don't find them. I mean, I know that the area where I find these, a lot of them has been tread on by hunters and people, hasn't been lived on since probably, hundreds of years, but they're hidden. It's kind of like, I remember your wife was looking at one and she said, and she kind of realized it was something. She says, you just think it was a rock, and so that's what it is. Unless you kind of know what you're, looking for. There's certain things on them that just catch your attention, and to pick it up and look. I look at a lot, and they're not all, but But like I say, I realize that these people live together. The Cherokee, the Bigfoot. I mentioned the story that your boys like that. It makes them giggle. When in Alabama area, they call the Bigfoot the boogers. Just an old.
They got them laughing for a few minutes.
Yeah, and then the Cherokee had what we call booger mask. And if you look at a lot of them, the ones I've seen, they totally look like a Sasquatch face. And they would use them in some different things, whatever they did. But let's see. And I guess I would say that all these people, these 3 different civilizations or whatever I'm talking about, these 3 different groups of beings, the Bigfoot, the Cherokee, and these people, I don't know, everybody that did their work. I mean, there's some places where they left things and they're just massive, the kind of the big, massive rock stuff. They were like, wow, I mean, we couldn't move that. I mean, I don't even think a Bigfoot could move a lot of that. Well, maybe a lot of them could. I don't know. I don't really know that, but I do know that these people that flew in these craft, they called them spacemen, right? That's what they called them, because they knew they came in a craft, but outer spacemen, that's what these old guys called them. And maybe they were right. Maybe they didn't come from the outer space, but they came from the outer space. But it's like, but it's not everybody. It's not like all the Cherokee, all the Bigfoot, all these guys, because I'll read you one little paragraph here, and you can just associate this with the Bigfoot and these other people. This came out of one of these history books. It says in 1835, that was just 3 years before the removal, several of the oldest Cherokee leaders, whose sources went back to the 1600s, said that they had always been divided into 2 groups. The majority of the people believed 2 people came down from above, created the sun, moon, and stars, and they now, they worship celestial bodies, while the minority sect believed in 3 supreme beings who functioned as one. And that's really what blew my mind there, when I realized that this particular sect of each group, the ones on these rocks, they worshiped the Messiah. I know that sounds crazy, but they did, because they lived together. Their signs, the same signs that, I've told you about, these certain ones. I basically, I'll call them a Messiah rock, because they have the figure of, of Yeshua on there. And I have some of those. So it's just like today, right? It's really no different than now. You can't go in what are the people like in America? Well, if you go to downtown Atlanta, it's going to be a little different than going to, to Fairmount, Georgia, where I live here. You don't even have a stoplight. So, things are different. So, but these sects were together, and they were, but talking about, I want to go back to when a lot of stuff came together when I learned, which, wasn't the longest ago, since I saw you the first time at Zen's place there, at Zen's, at his conference. I learned that the millennial kingdom had already happened, and I had read that stuff so much, and I was like, wow. And I realized that, but then things started to come together. I'm like, well, there you go. When I couldn't figure out, well, why would he have been there when they say he's not, when I know he walked here when he hasn't returned yet. I had an experience with him one time, and, people, well, no, it couldn't have been him, because there, and I'm like, whatever, so things really
still waiting for him to show up in the sky yet. So right. Yeah,
waiting to show up.
Even though we have records of him there, going all, not just through North and Central America, but even into Asia. So he was making the rounds all over the place.
Well, when you read that he walked the Americas, I already knew it. I did. I was like, good. But you read so many stories. You read one about a river I found rocks on, and there it was called Etowah, which is what the natives call it. It's called the Etowah River now. Got moths coming in. It's so there was a lot of things, several other things. I really liked too one time when he asked, well, when they said, what do we call you? And he said, you decide. Because I thought about that a lot, because how people get so on wanting to, you got to say the right name. And I'm like, he's not that way. Now, I do agree, out of respect, because I have a lot of foreign friends, and when I want to say their name right, when I know their name, they'll, I used to know a lot of Vietnamese guys, they had some unusual names, and they just get these other names, go, no, I want to know, that you're Fung, that you're Hong Nguyen, and all this stuff, just to say their name right. But I look at it like this, when we talk to them, it's kind of like, I've got grandchildren, 5, and they've got all kind of different, two of them call me grandpa, one calls me papa, one calls me grandpa, and one just calls me for money. but they, you don't care what they call you. You just want them to be behave. You just want them to be good people. So,
I agree.
So, but and I'm not saying. I guess I guess people are going, are you trying to say that a Bigfoot can obtain salvation? And if he's worshiping, the Creator.
This is kind of interesting, and this wasn't planned, but I just we just today published a book on Sasquatch, which I call Wild Man in 19th Century America. He wasn't known as Sasquatch till like the 1950s. In the 1800s, he was exclusively known as Wild Man to all the European settlers and Americans. And I went through all the different. I tracked down all the newspaper articles I could. This is like a 200-page book, just newspaper articles from the 1800s, all the documentation of Wild Man. A quick note on this. Somebody in here just said, I'm going to bring up his comment. He said, the Bigfoot I saw was just a giant hairy man, which is really interesting. He's saying he wasn't a ape figure. And just to let that individual know that actually is the majority of sightings in the 1800s, the Wild Man. He wasn't, but anyways, that he was just a giant man, like a literal man, but giant, but and hairy. But my point, my point is that there's like hardly any sightings of Sasquatch which are pleasant. You had talked about, like just somebody even made a comment here tonight that, it was this really dark episode where she thinks a Sasquatch walked around her house and all the cats and everyone was afraid. But this is how I like to phrase it, because I don't have evidence that they're all evil and demonic spirits. Mm-hmm. The way I would phrase it is like if a woman were jogging through the park, and this is kind of a horrific example, but it's actually a very unfortunate reality that's happening, like in, say, Europe right now with all the immigrant invasion. And she is actually attacked by a group of immigrants who they attack her and do something really bad to her in the park. It would be an unfortunate situation for her to then conclude that all men in the park are evil and they're just going to attack you. The reality is that vagrants and immoral and morally depraved individuals or perverse individuals are going to make themselves more known than somebody who's minding their own business. And so I do hold out that they're, within the spiritual world, for those of us who believe Enoch and Jasher, or I should say Jubilees and second and third Baruch and these kind of books, that this is a spiritual realm we live in. And there are spirits all around us that are the farmers, that are tending to the woods, the earth, the ecosystem, the weather, and we don't see them because they're just minding their own business, doing good, working. It's just the malnourished individuals that show up. So all that to say is, yes, I do believe that a Sasquatch, which I classify as a fairy, that could be a wrong classification, but I classify them as an American type of fairy, that they too can be saved. So,
well, the Cherokee had a lot of stories with the little people too. Who they were, I don't know, but they did, and I haven't found anything or know anything about it, but I do know the stories, and I do believe they're true. That
yeah, our very own Sean Walkingbear, he was here earlier tonight. I don't know if he's still here. He's talked about, he's personally seen Sasquatches and the little people, and he's talked about the stories from the different tribes that have talked about like literal Smurfs, like these really little, almost like these brownie type of creatures that that they don't see in the woods anymore. Either they've all died off, moved on, so on and so forth. And I do believe that these fairy creatures do die, that they have a prolonged life. They live longer than we do, but they eventually do expire and die.
Yeah. I've seen some things that maybe some people have done a lot of work, and maybe as many as 3 different types of the Sasquatch. And one is nothing but evil. So, but and I don't know, but I do think, there's something there because they got along, they protected them. There was, I don't know how to explain it, but I know there was a correlation together, and they got along, and they were under the will of the Father there. At least these certain ones were. Well, now you mentioned the eagles, I'll show you a few. Here's a very plain one. This is kind of funny. It looks like a 9-iron, kind of there, all right, or something like that.
Yeah, I see it.
And it's not, and it's just it was I found it on a creek, and it was a small Indian mound. And when you find something like that, this is an eagle sitting on its nest, and I have some that are flying, but this is definitely a small eagle, and you know that because when you get on the underside of it, I don't know if you can see there's always a space to show you when you go in it, there's a room in there, so I've got I should have brought it in. I've got one out there on my porch, a big one. I don't know, it looks like a hippopotamus to me, but it is a oval rock, and it shows you that it is a massive cave where I got this one. But this, let's see. But these little things are, these, and I say it was an Indian mound, and not the big ones you can see from a mile away or anything, but the little ones where, they buried people in them. Sometimes they had their meetings in there, which, I guess is not unusual because some of these Cherokee, and I just read about it, I don't really know much about it. They said they even buried some of their dead in their own, their family members in their own cabins, which is, that's in their cabin floor, so that's little different. I mean, go to bed at night. Good night, Grandma. I don't know, but it's just a little different. But I don't necessarily think there's any. I don't know anything about it, so I wouldn't say it was evil or anything. But they also had a lot of, when they would meet in there, there's a lot of rocks that represent high priests, which is interesting to me, because here were people that, in our terminology, we would call them Christians, because they were followers of Christ, and people, without a doubt, the Cherokee, this group I'm talking about, everybody wrote about them, even from like 1701 is the first writing I had, I believe, and it said by no means are certain groups of them heathen. If anything, they follow the Mosaic, law and institutions. So I know you've heard that before, but
yeah.
But they would bury a lot of these people in these mounds, the high priest, and with their wives too, and all that. Here's a little one I showed you, which is, I like this one because this is a double one. You get a lot of that. I don't know how good it'll come out on there, but that's a little high priest there. Can you,
Now, how can you? What about that says like high priest to you?
Just because I know where it was, and it's got some markings on it, like that you wouldn't know, but anyway, when you look at that, I will tell you that. But when you look at that, if you turn it upside down, see, that was his wife. Yeah, that was his wife. I don't know how good it comes out there, but there's certain things that show you that something's feminine, more of a roundness and everything on them. So I don't know if you could see that, but yeah, the hair's longer down there. We're this way. The male, it's the feathers up there, more of a type head. But
I do think that's really crazy how you could just flip a rock over and it could be male on one side, female on the other.
Yeah. Well, it's like this, and I mean, this doesn't look like anything but just an old rock here, but this is definitely a high priest because the markings are all on their head. He's looking up to heaven, and I don't know how it'll come out, or I might not be holding it at the right angle or anything, but it sits this way. Yeah. Let me see if I can set it on something you can see better. It might come out better if I set it flat on something. I don't know if you could kind of see a guy looking up into the sky. Chin right there, nose. He's got kind of a shroud, some type of thing on his head. You might be missing that one, but you had a picture of that one, I believe.
Yeah, I could throw it up for you.
You might be able to see it better.
Right here, this one.
Yeah, that probably comes up, but you can see he's just looking up, and that's the way a lot of these are, and that just shows, they were worshiping, Yah, looking up. This is an old one. It's kind of funny, and this is a map too, of course. But if you look at that, it's kind of this. I don't know if you can you see that? The hair. It's even like he's even got like a little yarmulke on or something. That's kind of different. Is that coming in?
Yes. And where's his face at? Is that his head?
He's looking this way. You can't see. They get dirty out there and all that stuff, but there's the hair coming down. And what it is this has got a flat part. It'll stand just like that. And it's a map, and you go in, it just shows you that when you go in, because it sits that way, leaning over a little bit, and it just shows you, and it represents a mountain, and there's a big cave in there. And then that's definitely on the back side. If you can see that right in there, that is nothing but a mark of a cave entrance right there. They're very specific. If you can kind of, and that's it. And when you find a lot of these things, they'll, you got to kind of look at them as, like, say if it's an animal, like, say this one I showed you a minute ago, this eagle. Can you see the eyes kind of got a little carve out there?
I can definitely see like the it's that's yeah. I see the eye. I see it. Yeah.
And then if you look on the other side, you see because you're always going to enter these things. Just look at it like a human body, through the mouth, the nose, the eye, come out in the back somewhere. But if you look on the back side, it even gets a little on the same spot where the eye is. There's a big cave marking, but and this represents a whole mountain here. This is and I saw this whole thing. I told you I dropped this one. That's why I hated. Boy, I hated that, because can you see the little tail feather sticking up in the back?
Yes.
Well, there was one right there. See the little white spot? I broke it off. But when you got at the top of this mountain, you looked maybe a mile away, where it went down this valley. There was a big area, the end of it. It went like this, a mountain that was a big circle, and then two little things on the edge. And I'm sitting there looking, it's like, holy cow, look at that. So, so there's a massive cave in this place.
So what's the purpose, do you think, of these? Like for that one there, it was an eagle. Have you covered tonight the importance of the eagles themselves? But what is it in your estimation, the importance of the cave itself, the map for the cave?
For people, I just say basically some of them are just small where they hid things, but these big ones were like places of safety, for at some point in time or the other. I think that's why you'll find a lot of these same, everybody there when something bad happened, these people that were, all united in fellowship, which I have that one I brought to you. I left it outside there, but it's called the right hand of fellowship. Some call it the right hand of brotherhood. And it's just a rock, of a hand. You can see the, people, extending the right hand of fellowship.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and that was interesting because I think I may have told you that, but when I saw one like that in a museum, I'm like, wow, that is something, and I prayed about that to find one, and I did. Boy, and I was so thrilled. I should have brought it in. Get Sabrina out of bed. She's got to work. Young people in their jobs and stuff. I don't know, but here's something. This is kind of interesting. This guy, I don't know. He's looking up. It's just like a blockhead. But the thing about it that got me, I'm saying, is that now you see the mouth. It sits flat. He's just looking. It's just a blockhead. But you got the mouth and the eyes, and at the end of his mouth, I don't know if it'll show up. There's like silver. So there's probably some, a silver mine in there or something, or not silver mine, but either some silver stored in there that somebody put in there. There's a few places. See the eye. So you get a lot of that. I showed you this one. Now this is just a map. It is a gold vein map. So, and this is an eagle. A duck flying, right? Is it
definitely see the duck. Yeah, I can see the head and the wings
flying. So when I found this, and this is one of those things like, I told you the story that people were using the rods, and I couldn't do. I tried it, and man, it upset me. I mean, I was just so disappointed. I wasn't upset. I was just disappointed that it didn't work for me, because they could find some pretty cool. It even worked for Sabrina. She could take the rods, because we had some people doing it and find water. I couldn't, and he was out there doing this water here, and I tried it every time. We were right out the house here on the road, and then Sabrina came out there just, talking. And I said, well, try this. And she walked right across from where that water was that he'd already found. And went, I'm like, son of a gun. But like I say, it doesn't work for me, but I'll explain this so you can see. When I found this, and the reason I brought that up is because I told you, and then I realized, so I was out there in the woods, way out there, and I came to a place and I just felt there was something there, and I dug into the ground, and probably, I don't know, a foot underground was this rock. And, and I started to realize I don't need a divining rod. So I was happy about that too. But this
You were telling me that you've never been successful with a divining rod, but your wife is able to.
Yeah, she is. It works for her. Not she's just finding water is all we were doing, you know.
Right.
But
Why do you think it works for her and not for you?
I don't know. Maybe she's nicer than me. Probably. But
I've never tried it. I've never tried. I want to try it one of these times.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can do different things. Some people use, and they even tell you couldn't use certain sticks. You can use like certain tree, hang them down will work too, will lead some people. But very common way is just 2 wires. You've seen people that hold the stick, they do that. But you get like 2 wires, copper wire fine or anything like that. And you put a bend in them, they just hold them. And when you hold them out, they up and straight across. And as you hit water, they cross, and there it is. And it worked perfect for me, but that didn't work for me.
What is it about this rock that, okay, so the dividing didn't work out for the water, but what is it about this rock that was buried that you were able to find it?
Just that feeling. I don't know. Just that thing, like just the way everything looks, just like, wow, this place here. And it's just so something about it, the same way you can tell when something's bad, right? Place is bad. And I gave you a good example of that, so.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I don't want to cut off your point. And you were talking about the silver storage, in the cave or whatever, but did you talk about why sometimes you'll see an eagle in a nest and it's like sitting down, and other times it's flying, like here that the duck is flying? What does that mean to you? Flying versus sitting? Well,
what this means, some things, this duck, I know what it means. When I found this rock, it means that what this map is showing you is a good ways away, because you have to fly. Sometimes you'll find a duck on the river. I've got some pretty good ducks out there that just sitting there, and they're showing you, you got to keep going down the river a little way to get to whatever you're looking for. This right here showed that, you had to go a little ways. And then when you turn it up this way, it's a fish. Can you see that?
Yeah.
On the top there. And the eye is right there. And there's a little streak of quartz going through there. Is that showing up? Little streak of quartz coming from his eye.
The only thing that's going through my head right now is keep on swimming, keep on swimming.
Well, the quartz represents a gold vein. And so, you go a little ways away. And when you look at this, as I looked at this thing, and I could see it perfect from where I was just looking around. I could see in the distance, there was a mountain here and a mountain here. There's a stream running through down here. This gold vein goes down to the stream and shows you that, this quartz line goes down to the stream and told you that's where the gold vein is. This is just a map rock to show them, because, the Cherokee, they didn't get all the gold like the white man does. They would just get what they needed, go mine the gold and take a little, whatever they wanted. They didn't, like I told you, like the buffalo, the white man, an Indian uses every part of a buffalo, and the white man uses every part of every buffalo. So,
how does it go? I can't remember the first part of it, but I just know white man build big fire, sit very far away.
You talking bad about my fires? No. Anyway, what was but yeah, and I've got a lot. I have got like a lot of these face profiles I was showing you there a minute ago. But yeah, the eagles, what they represent in a lot. Sometimes they're just something else, but what they represent, when you see an eagle, it represents that the eagle, that's what's inside of that cave, is an eagle. And what it is like I say on this, the eagle is a flying craft, is one of the things it is.
It's one, but maybe not all. So there's a possibility that they're saying that there is a craft inside the cave.
That's right. Yeah. And I was shown, like some rock maps, and this was, this was a guy's interpretation, and he was so good at it. I mean, the funny thing, like I was telling you earlier about the guy that wrote the serious books, he got involved with this other guy, and he would like take him, and I did the one guy had already passed away, but the other guy said that he said, you just can't deny it. He goes, I would take him places he's never been. I just like, let's come out here, and I'm looking for this, and he's going around, and he's like, here it is, dig down here a foot, something like that, 3 feet, something. Sometimes it would be different things, and he's like, the proof is in the pudding there. When we got our well when we got our well put in here, the guy that put it in, he's like, do you have? He said, y'all, the guy that did the pumps was going to put the pump. I ended up putting the pump in, but he said, I was talking to this guy, and he said, y'all to go get so-and-so over here. He'll tell you where the well is, and you tell them exactly how far they need to go. He goes, and these well people hate him because, they come in there with the hydraulic, and they go down till they hit water. They don't care where they put it at. They put it down, they'll go down 500 feet to, this is, and just keep going, the more money they make. But this guy could go around and be really specific about it. And everybody knew it was real. And like I say, these well people did not like him because he cost them, money. But these caves, like with something like that eagle where you go in. But I saw a map one time this guy showed me, and it was a line of a lot of little holes, across a big rock, and a lot of little tiny holes. And he was telling me each one of those represented a cave or one they had put these ships in. Because I guess, I don't know this, but I heard some of it, but I just assumed it's probably what happened is that they put these, you come here from somewhere, it's like driving a car into the desert. You just can't drive it but so long, because you're not going to have the parts to fix it, because they came to wherever they came from, they came to a whole different area, and they just weren't going to last but so long is the way I look at it, because I meant to send you a picture, no, and I didn't, but I went and took one, but I've got this large rock. I went out and took a picture of it today. It kind of looks like a Jetson type old, and it represents a flying craft, and the nose cone on it is broke off. And that's intentional. It's a map. It shows you that this thing is there. And incidentally, that came from the same place where that little eagle came from. But it shows you that it's in there and that it doesn't work anymore. It's broke. And I've seen or was shown another one of those before, so that's how I knew what that was.
What do you think has happened to a lot of these crafts? Do you think they are still there to be found? Do you think they've been dug out?
I've definitely been found, by governments, probably all across the world, but definitely ours have, and they've done the same thing that they might have done when one crash, but they do the reverse engineering because they certainly have taken over a lot of caves, and some of I don't know if you know anything about Alabama, but that is an incredible place with the rocks over there, and it is just cave laden, massive entrances. Not these around here. I'm talking about. You're going to have to dig to get into them now. You're going to have to get into a little place, and then it'll open up. But what I can do with these rocks is I know where the entrance is. Like it's right in here. That's what they do. It's not going to tell you exactly every little spot, but it's pretty close. But you're going to have to do your own, do your own work on it. And another thing I've learned about them too, and I heard it, and I read a story recently about the same kind of thing, is that they are booby trapped, these caves. So you got to be careful, and it's mainly from above. There may be some, but where things. It's like I was reading this one thing where a guy had been taking one, and he said, and he's showing somebody else, says, do not touch this sliver of rock coming down here. How you might just want to put your hand on something. You don't touch that, or several large rocks will put you out. So they're
and in your estimation too, these crafts, these ancient crafts, and the we'll call them aliens, whatever, people want to call them spacemen, whatever. You and I are on the same cosmology. That were these guys, I guess you had made the comment earlier saying you're still kind of trying to figure out whether these guys were the good guys or the not so good guys. But is it possible that when Yahshua or Messiah, when he came, that he came in crafts?
Definitely. Yeah.
You're seeing a connection, it seems like, in the rocks between this Messiah figure and the crafts, is what you've been getting at.
Well,
or it's what I've been getting at, I guess.
They were different because they came with families, and they came, before, they were, he came to see, and they were like anybody else too. They weren't all bad. They had their sects too, because in some areas where these large stones are, they have these holes drilled in them, like some of the other ones and they were doing like human sacrifice, not all the time, but just look at the Bible, basically the same story. You're doing this here, now all of a sudden, what are you doing? Sacrificing your children or something. So yeah, that same kind of stuff happened. But these people on these rocks, they didn't. They were the ones that stuck with it, and they're still here somewhere. I don't know where, but of course we know the Cherokee are here. A lot of people believe the Bigfoot are here, right? So I have to assume these other beings are somewhere. They are. I don't know where, but they could be gone, but I kind of assume they are, because they were definitely part of this, and they helped. Evidently, they helped the ones in the craft did help the Native Americans a lot in some way. So a lot of that's shown. That picture you've got an eagle. That's pretty cool. That picture I gave you. That's about a 2.5 foot. Could you tell that was an eagle?
Did you want me to pull it up again?
Yeah, pull that up. That's fine. Yeah, pull that up.
Okay, we looked at this. Is this what we're looking at?
Now, that's a buffalo, and that came from a sacred ceremonial ground, and that they were gonna, bulldoze over, and so I just couldn't let it go. I have several buffaloes, and they definitely represent sacred sites. So
okay, all right. So that was a sacred site. All right, and then there is a very human or alien, almost looks like a crystal skull almost.
Yeah, it's a map too, and it was on a creek and showed a mound. Yeah, I have that right here. We can get a double take on that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah. So, and it's, you can see it from two sides too. But this side you can see, and you can probably see it in there right there, and on the screen too. The mouth, you've got a little place. The eye, it's got a cave, an entrance. I say cave. This was a small area. There was actually a house. When I found this, I was working at a house, not that long with it, but it was down in Roswell, Georgia, and I was taking a break. I was getting it ready. They were going to sell it. I was just worried it was empty. I was working by myself, and I went down there, and I was taking a break, and I walked out to the back. And Roswell is a place that's just got all these natural springs through them, and they use them a lot as boundaries. As property lines. And so I'd walk back there. I walked back there, and I looked. I went, "Oh my gosh, what's the most beautiful little spring?" And I started looking around, and I found that. I found the prettiest lamb, and I found a couple of. This was the prettiest one I've ever seen. It really was, and it was showing, the mound. It even had on it. It had this big knot on it, on the edge where the river, where the creek was, and it showed the entrance. And I found that because the rock was just massive, sitting on this big rock there, and it was represented on the land. But while I was standing in that little creek, you talk about breaking rocks. I was standing in that little creek, and I was having this like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I'm doing, I said, and so instead of walking up on the bank, I thought, well, I'll just give a little 2-foot toss laid in the grass there, and I threw it in the grass and snap, it hit another rock and bam. And so I just sat there and cried, But it was sad. I really hated that. But and what else did I? But yeah, I found those two things there. I mean,
right.
I found some other things too.
I'm just gonna. We're on the last. I was gonna get to the picture you wanted. We're on kind of the last, the bottom of the last hour here. So I wanted to make sure we get through these. So
really,
we look. So okay, tell me about this one here.
Well, that is I call him, that is the Messiah there. That is that's him. It's a map rock, and it just it doesn't
now I see this
place.
I see this killer chin here, and then we got the nose, and there's the eye and the head. I totally see that this is represented as a human. So what is it about this rock that has you, saying, okay, this is the Messiah rock here, Messiah stone?
Like the other ones, you see that, the beard, the sharp nose, which you get that on some too, not on the natives, but it's just because I don't know how to tell you it is, but like here's another one, the same kind of thing, that's same kind of guy that is the Messiah, that's Yeshua, because he came here, and this one actually, like I said, I don't know if you could ever see it, but it's got a guy right there looking to the heavens, very hard to see. But he's looking to the heavens, but you can see the and when you get this, and that is as high a royalty as you can get right there. When you get that streak across the top there, so that gold looking,
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. And this guy saw him come from the sky. So, that was, so here's another one. Well, I have that one you showed. I'll show you another too, but yeah. I mean, even from the other side, the back side, you can tell how they're, so very much. But this is a pretty large rock showing a very large cave. And all it's really saying is that, I mean, it's just like, this is this big place to go for safety. And it is from him, that he's the one that set it up. He's the one that's for his people. And this is kind of the same thing here. Here's another one that's this guy. Is that showing up pretty good? See that nose?
Yeah, I can see the nose. And
you can see his eyebrow. I don't know if I turn it. I can't tell.
I can see it.
Screen behind me showing him so I can put it at the right angle. But yeah, his you can see all that. And when you go in at the places, like I said, you go at the nose, and this is one of those. Can you see the curve on the bottom?
Yes.
All through that, and that shows you, that's the place to go in. So, and yeah. But this is a really, if you get this one at the right angle, it has its eyebrow, it has just, everything on it. So, I don't know, but it's kind of that kind of stuff. But I have a lot of dogs. I do have a dog over here. I show. And this is definitely a map rock. And while you have the dogs, is they he's even got that. You can even see his two ears. The bottom one and the top one. And
I'm not seeing the dog in there. Can we help me see the dog? Okay, is that the nose? Right? The nose.
That's the nose.
Okay, this now.
Yeah,
okay, I can. Oh wait, I can kind of see an ear. Is there like a dark spot in the back with the ear?
There's the ear there, like okay. If he's got his head to
him. Yeah, I'm seeing it. All right.
Sabrina, turn some lights on. I don't know what's going on. Get her out of there. But
what is the dog remind you of?
Back,
what is the dog?
Side, like I say, you'll find the spot places to tell you. That's you can go in there. But the dogs you find them a lot at the entrances too, because they like guard, the places too. They show that, and I've got one big, really big dog, and it's one laying down. And a friend of mine was over here, and I had that rock sitting down, and his dog was laying the same way, and we were both looking at it, and he didn't know. I'm like, look at that. Oh, wow. I mean, it was the exact same, way that and the reason I'd gotten that rock because it was a big curved rock, and I thought, man, that'll be a great fire pit rock. And when I sat there and looked at it, I went, oh my goodness. But yeah, that kind of stuff. There's
it seems like even in a lot of mythology, that there are like dog type of entities that will guard, the underworld as well. So did you want to, I was going to bring this one up. Did we cover this one yet? Let's see if I can pull it up. Now I can't find where it went. Here it is. Did we go over this one here?
That's an eagle sitting on a nest.
Okay.
Yeah. And that one definitely represents a ship in a place. And I mean, can you kind of like, if you see it's sitting on its desk, it's even got the feather, how the way the rocks are on the neck. Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
So that's a pretty special one right there. That really is. I didn't move that one. It's just kind of it's kind of some of them are, I don't know. You just get that sacred feeling from them. But
so we went over the two trees here. That's the jellyfish, and then there's the stick man, or perhaps the Sasquatch. And then you have this map. What did this screenshot? Was this something specific you wanted to go over?
Yeah, it is. I wanted you just to see. I just think it's quite fascinating that that's the Etowah River, the one that you read about in the Coming, in He Walked the Americas. And I don't know if you can zoom in, but there's an eagle's beak, and it goes up to a wing there. You see it's looking that way.
Yeah, right here, right? Is it?
Yeah.
This, you see my mouth, I think. Yeah.
The mouth, everything, and all these. There was a lot of places right in there. These ball council houses, ball grounds, they called them. Just a lot of some various rock mounds in there inside that eagle right there. And it's just amazing to me that water, that river forms that. And right in there, all in the head area, a little bit behind it, were all these places. So, I mean, it's kind of like that rock eagle I showed you a picture of. It's just too many things, too many coincidences, that kind of stuff. So,
found that fascinating stuff, Steve. What has been the most, I don't know, was there something you looked at that was the most convincing piece of evidence?
I don't know. Not really. What
does it mean to you? Like, if you were to sum all this up, I mean, what does this have to, if this is like our past, we're looking into the past, and we're looking at these maps that these people left, that were maybe places of safety, places where there were crafts or ships, different things like that. Or, there's markings for Sasquatch, which maybe is kind of up in the air as to all what that meant. What does it mean for us today? Is there any kind of practicality for it?
Well, there is, if we were perhaps in the end times of this time, there definitely is. And I mean, if we ever get together, I could go through some stuff in scriptures, if we ever do something again to show that it really does, it helps you with scripture, but to understand things that, are going to happen too. To me, it does, without a doubt, some of these things. One of the most amazing things that's happened to me is like these verifications. When I was wanting to know about the eagle, I found out that the eagle, when I was trying to what is this? What is the eagle? It was one of those things I was praying about, and it was slow to come, and because I was looking for him to come soon too. That was another reason, when that was, well, you don't know what I'm talking about there, but where the eagle was gathered, there would the body be. So I was looking for him, to come sooner. But I was working at this place, and I had really been praying about that. And I turned on the radio because the 12 o'clock news was coming on, and immediately, the thing said, it was 30 years ago today when America heard these words, Houston, the eagle has landed. I went, oh my gosh, that's it, Of course, now I know that, it might have been on a string, but it still landed, But back then, I didn't know it. It was some type of craft. And so that was one of those things that was pretty, and it wasn't, but it was from the rocks, but it, was, translated from the news. And, that was what, 19, well, it was 30 years, 1999. So that's when I learned that's what that was, when I was sure of it, that the eagle represented some type of craft. And when you read that in the He Walked the Americas, because I had heard stories, that local stories that Christ had been here with 12 disciples, and there's just rocks with like 12 things, and people, they say they tell the story. I don't know the story they tell, but they are like 12 rocks, in different places. But the story is he did come on a craft. I tend to think he probably landed over there somewhere on the Etowah Indian Mounds, which is where I have some trees pointing to that place. And the stories go that that he and 12 men came on camels and rode around and passed through here and talked with the people and all that. So
talking about the idea that Messiah would come down on a quote unquote spacecraft, or what we would know as UFO or whatever, I'm definitely on board with that too. That I've seen it. I've seen my share of activity in the skies, and I am not convinced that they're all bad. I've actually seen
they're not.
I guess they look like stars to me, flying around up there. But I've seen them maneuvering, and it seems like they were fighting each other on two different sides. It reminded me straight out of the story in Judges.
Me too. No, I was looking through binoculars one night, and I'm seeing that happen. The exact thing you were going, something shoot off to the side. I couldn't see it with the naked eye, but when I was just looking at stars with my binoculars, and I started seeing that, and I was like, "There's no way that something, it looked like a satellite, and all of a sudden it was something already here, and it got close to it, and like something, and bam, it just shot away real quick, like, let me get
I've seen Starlink move really fast and stuff like that, but this was when I first moved to South Carolina 10 years ago, and I'm looking up, and I'm looking at the stars. I'm minding my own business. I'm like, this is cool, beautiful night with stars, and then I start watching those stars, just like spin around in circles, and then they stop, and then they like advance on each other, and they're shooting off different directions, and they come back, and I'm just watching this like, is anybody else seeing, like I wasn't on mushrooms or LSD or, DMT or anything like that. Perfectly sober when I was watching it. So I kind of have the same view of orbs, UFOs, that kind of stuff as I do Sasquatches. I think that in most cases when people see them, they're the enemy, most cases, but I can't prove that they're all bad just on the basis that, the most intrusive ones are the ones that people are typically seeing. So, all right. So we're coming up on the end here. Is there anything you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to show? I mean, I really enjoyed this, and I hope other people did too. It's one of those things. Go ahead.
It's different when you said, you told me I like to get people on there with different views and opinions, and I said, well, I have some, so I'll tell you.
Well, I'm trying to get. I just want you to know, Steve, there's nothing you said that I disagree with. I'm driving with the whole thing. It's really, it's different. This is very different, but it's one of those things that I just started to say that that I think when for those people who watch this video, if they make it through the end and they're it's one of those things. I think the more you think about it, you're like, wow, that's actually really fascinating. And the fact that you've had this calling to do something that like nobody knows about, and you're actually going out and finding this stuff. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this will, who knows, maybe you'll get in contact with, hopefully not with the people from the skies, but with other people who are going to see this video and go, hey, Steve, I do the same thing. Like, so you never know. Yeah, and for everyone out there watching, I am trying to get, if there's anyone out there who like you have a field of study and you want to present on it, come and contact me. I'm trying to bring on a lot of people onto this channel with very different, I guess, schools of study. And it doesn't have to be something that I agree with or fully agree with, whatever. I'm just really interested in the information and learning more about this very strange realm that we live in. So everybody, Steve is known as Rockman. He is a valued member over at Tuck. He's over there a lot in our Discord group. What was that?
I'm valuable.
You are. You're a precious stone. Yeah, so hopefully everyone enjoyed the School of Rock tonight from Professor Rockman. What is this we're looking at?
Cry of the Eagle. It tells a lot about treasures and stuff, things like that. And I will say, there's a lot of there are a lot of treasures out there, and this guy that was introducing me to that, about the treasures, and I would say, well, why don't you go get them if you know where they are? And he did. I mean, he didn't go get them, but he'd say, no, it's not for me. It's for somebody else, and I know it's for somebody that needs it. So I don't. I mean, I like money, but I don't need it. I live very simple, and I don't need it. But there's a lot of people that do, and so I think that that at some point in time, see, there were I met this actually a guy that wrote this book. His daughter, she's older than me. I went and talked to her. I think I'd mentioned that, but with her. But golly, what was I going to say about it? But anyway, these things are out there, but they're for a future time too. That money is still out there. But what I'll say is, she said that when she was a little girl, that her dad he knew the stuff. He had learned this stuff, and he was they were part Cherokee. They were related to one of the chiefs, as a matter of fact, that they knew around here. But she said that people would come from Oklahoma, to see her dad come there so he could take them, these Cherokee, because they wanted to get some of these treasures that's still been passed back. This would have been in the probably 50s, something like that. But to get some of this stuff that they still knew was here because their family had passed it down, passed the information down that need to go get it one day. And this guy knew all the signs and everything, and he helped them get it. And he never took any either, but he helped them get some treasures. So he was a good fellow too. See, all these people I'm talking about, these are the good fellas. I try to stay away from the bad fellas. So,
all right. Well, once again, thank you, Steve, for coming on and doing show and tell tonight with your rock collection. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. And everyone out there, just a reminder, let's take care of the widows here at Tuck that we sponsor, Pamela and Rebecca. If y'all puts it on your heart to bless them, and they certainly need our support. And that's it. Thank you, Steve.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
All right. Good night, everybody.